Elation and jubilation gamers from all around the world. I am Lucian, the World Gamer. Welcome to a show where we talk about everything gaming. And today I have a very special guest here with me, Jeremy Blaustein, legendary translator, voice director, and absolute authority in video games localization. Welcome, Jeremy, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Lucian. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. So, guys, he's worked on some of the best and most classic video games ever. If you love games from the 90s and the 2000s, you probably experienced his work. His curriculum is interstellar with games ranging from Metal Gear Solid to the Silent Hill series, but also Shenmue and classic RPGs like Suikoden 2, Valkyrie Profile, Vandal Hearts, Shadow Hearts. So I mean, guys, he's the one who came up with the name codec for Metal Gear Solid 1 in the now iconic phrase, "What is a man?" from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So just wow. I mean, the more I think about it, the more it just blows my mind. And that's not even mentioning your role as a voice director and your work on localizing and translating the anime adaptation of a little series you guys might have heard of called Pokemon. So Jeremy, you had a hand in everything I love. You made my childhood, and I'm sure that of our viewers today in some shape or form. So it's an honor to have you here, Jeremy. Thanks again.
Thank you. I think that's a great introduction. Thank you. I feel on top of the world after that introduction.
Great. So I gathered some notes to help me because we have a lot to talk about.
Come along quietly.
Hey, how you doing?
I would say that one of the most maybe difficult things to, projects to translate games are RPGs. And you worked on the localization of some of the most cult classic JRPGs, including Suikoden 2, Vandal Hearts, Dragon Quest 7, Valkyrie Profile, Shadow Hearts. So you are an authority in this. But are you an RPG guy yourself?
Yeah, I used to be. Japanese RPGs, like, you have to have a lot of free time.
At least 50 hours for the main quest.
Yeah. So, yeah, I used to play a lot of RPGs.
So, yeah. But it's safe to say that you really pioneered, in a way, the concept of localization in video games with emphasis on quality, along with very few others like maybe Working Designs come to mind. But your portfolio, your RPG portfolio makes you among the biggest authorities, I would say, in RPG localization. So how is it different to localize an RPG with a huge world building and tons of characters compared to something smaller like platformers like Castlevania or Escape with way less line of dialogues?
Well, first thing I would say is that, like Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill 2, I translated 100% by myself. But an RPG like Suikoden was a completely different story. Not to mention Dragon Quest 7, which was 10 times more horrible. The first thing you have to understand is that back then they didn't have the tools that they have now. We didn't have computer-assisted translation tools. We didn't have even the team themselves. Basically, what they would do back then is the Japanese team would make the game, and when they were done, after working for 2 years, sleeping on couches, they were done. They would just hand it off to someone. You wouldn't talk to them. There was no one in between the team and the translator. There just wasn't anyone, and so there was no one to talk to.
They were probably burnt out as well. They didn't want to hear anything about the game anymore.
They didn't want to be bothered. So in the case of both Suikoden and Dragon Quest, just to show you how ridiculous it was, Suikoden, we got, you get like hundreds or thousands of files, okay? In the case of Suikoden, we didn't even know which character was speaking. Because I suppose the character names were compiled back into it. You got this text with code, code in it that you have to work around. And it would say something like X4976, and then it would have a line. So we didn't know what character was speaking, and in Suikoden, you've got 108 characters.
You had to guess.
We had to play the game and make educated guesses We didn't even know, you wouldn't know, Japanese doesn't contain plural forms, for example, so you wouldn't know if you're fighting a single monster or a group of monsters, for example.
Right.
You wouldn't know if a character is a boy or a girl.
So there's a lot of room for mistakes that wouldn't depend on you.
I didn't translate those by myself. I put together a team of 3 or 4 people. In the case of Dragon Quest VII, at one point we had over 20 people working on it.
Oh my God.
And there was tens of thousands of files. In fact, this isn't something I've talked about in an interview before, but I had a friend who was a programmer. And I said to him, how am I going to deal with the size of this thing? And he said, if it was me, this guy knows nothing about translation. He says, I could just, write a program to sort of suck up all the text and take out the code and we'll spit it back and blah, 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 blah. So we began this project together to do this. And I started a company, WordBox, which was the name of the software that this guy was building. It was like the first computer-assisted translation tool. So it included, you could put in glossary terms, and eventually even the translators could chat with each other in real time.
Not bad.
It was quite amazing, really. It was amazing what this guy did. There was no other way to handle that. We're talking about tens of thousands of files and just absolute chaos.
Oh my God. But that paid off.
Yeah, I mean, they retranslated Dragon Quest VII.
Yeah, for 3DS.
And they had every advantage talking to the teams, tools, technology. So yeah, there's a lot of regrets.
But among the highest, honestly, in my opinion, works in RPG, Valkyrie Profile for me takes the cake.
That one, geez. Yeah, that one was a pretty tightly run ship, and I don't recall any problems of understanding or knowing. I mean, I'm a huge Norse mythology fan, so
that was really up your alley.
Yeah, not only that, I also worked with my sister, the voice actress from Pokemon, on that one. So that was a great pleasure.
Nice. And of course, to my side, my noble Einherjar. How epic was that? Was that a line you translated yourself, by the way? Do we owe it to you? Oh, that's got pretty amazing job.
I always took the best stuff, the best lines for myself.
That was great. You didn't have anything to do with the voice recordings in this one?
Yeah, I did. I capped and directed it.
So that explains it. that line.
It was all done in Taj Studios in New York, where the original Pokemon was done.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, those were all Pokemon actors.
Right. And but honestly, I have to tell you, with how many times you hear that line in battles, basically whenever a battle begins, to my side, Winnable and Harrier, it's amazing that it didn't come to bother after the 1000th time. It will always put you in the mood of battle, bring it on, that was really an amazing job. In fact, I believe that your voice directing job, voice performances were not re-recorded, were not replaced to this day, because Valkyrie Profile was recently re-released on PS4, but it was on PS4 and 5, but it was based on the PSP, which I believe that it's the same performance.
I don't know.
As the one that it's the same as the PS1. So
where could you play that now?
On PS4 you can. There is a digital version, and there is it's based on the PSP version, which was the first widescreen version. But with the single rooms that was squared 4x3, they had to stretch it. I'm not sure I don't own the PS4. I only own the PSP version, which was the first one to come into Europe, and it's the same voice acting as the original.
I love that game.
Speaking of that game, from even personally involved, because I want to thank you so much for giving my name, Lucian, to one of the main characters. The original name, if I'm not mistaken, was like Ruscio or Lucio. But you went with Lucian, and was there a particular reason? But more in general, what makes you decide to change something from the original to Japanese when it comes to names?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a friend of the family had a son named Lucian.
I have to thank him.
But also Lilith, in Japanese it was probably Birisu.
Okay.
I didn't know what that was, what that was referring to, or what they were imagining Birisu was,
Do they know that Lucian is based, the person, does he know that the Lucian, the character, you named after him? No. You never told him. Good. I didn't know that bit, by the way. That's awesome.
I never mentioned that.
Great. And speaking of Vandal Hearts, as you said, it was one of the earliest work for you, and one of the earliest RPG for the Western market, possibly the first big one, I would say.
It wasn't actually the first. The first one that I actually translated and directed would have been Hardcore, Contra Hardcore.
Ah, okay. No, but as an RPG, that was the first one, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'd like to know is how hard it was being the first RPG that you did with tons of lines compared to the later RPGs. Was it like a tough wall to break?
I didn't really think of that as an RPG. I think now they would call it an FRPG.
Strategy, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't have that many characters.
Mm-hmm.
It was, much easier to...
It was smaller in scales.
But you still came from Luth Nature, which I believe had more dialogues than Vandal Hearts, even considering the genre.
Yeah, Vandal Hearts I did by myself.
So it was small enough for you to do it all by yourself. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And but Suikoden 2 was a much bigger project, right?
Suikoden was, it was much bigger.
The biggest was Dragon Quest, you said.
10 times bigger than...
My God. I didn't finish Dragon Quest, but Suikoden 2, it was incredible. But that had its own share of controversies, right?
Yeah, I think that was it was like the first game where someone said shit.
And how did it feel back in the day? Did they manage to get under your skin this feedback? It wasn't always constructive, you would say, or was it? Because there was controversy surrounding the translation of Suikoden 2.
Yeah, Suikoden 2. No, it never really got under my skin because I knew nobody knew the challenges we were facing. Like I said, we had a text dump. We didn't know what characters were speaking.
Yeah.
We had a terrible deadline. And it was actually an amazing thing that we pulled it off at all.
I agree.
Some of the better lines in there, because it's a lot of up and down in it. I know there was some really, really good writing and good translation, but there was probably a lot of mistakes.
Suikoden 2 wasn't just by yourself.
No, that was with a few people.
Right.
And I remember, I translated some scenes that were a lot of fun, like Luca Blight, like the whole die pick scene,
Oh my God, that really got me. That scene.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was fun. It made me feel like such strong feelings.
I think Luca Blight, who could have been Ruka Bright.
Right.
I mean,
but Blight is so perfect.
I think the Japanese creators were probably thinking of the word bright. They wouldn't know the word blight, but it occurred to me blight would be a better.
Makes so much more sense for his personality. And speaking of controversies, because we know we love those, but you've handled the voice work also for the first Shenmue on Dreamcast, right?
I didn't have much to do with that.
Okay.
Shenmue was this enormous project, and I remember when Yu Suzuki, he just threw so much money at it, and there was this one initial meeting at his place. I'll never forget it. A giant round table with a TV that came up from the middle of it like a James Bond movie. Everybody around that table, this is before any of it started, it was like you could smell the money in this thing. But he also wanted to do it in Japan, like Team Silent did. Problem was this, they told us from the beginning it was going to have 500 characters or 500, spoken voices. And I knew it was impossible because there simply weren't that many, not even close to that many voice actors.
Maybe not even people, normal people.
Not even foreigners. I mean, so what my company did for that was we helped with the casting, which is to say we contacted agencies to send people. That was one thing we did. The other thing that I did sort of separately, was help to cast the two main roles, the lead male and the lead female. And for that, according to Mr. Suzuki, he wanted them cast in America and he wanted them to be like attractive young people because he had plans for, I don't know, maybe doing a series or live action thing. He wanted them to look the part. He wanted the male to be a martial arts guy.
And attractive.
Yeah, and attractive. So I went to New York and I did like a casting call there, and I had people were sending me their 4x6s, and so I found the two lead characters, but I didn't have anything to do with translation or voice recording.
Okay,
that was it.
So, and do you have any idea then why are they so bad? The quality.
I'll tell you. First of all, it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to be a disaster, and I knew it was going to be a disaster. And that's why I didn't get involved, because there was no way it was going to be good. For one thing, we didn't translate it because, as I recall, Mr. Suzuki, I heard that he had a brother-in-law that had like a translation company or something.
Okay, so he wanted to leave that to him, the translation. No, but the sound quality feels horrible. Was it like the booth, I don't know, falling apart? Because it's so weird. There is noises in the background.
It was so rushed that it was such a pressured operation that it was like watching a slow motion train wreck. And I knew it wasn't going to be good.
Right. It's a miracle it even came out as good as it is.
It's pretty bad though, wasn't it?
More than the vocal deliveries, it was the sound quality that felt strangely bad, like as if it wasn't even checked, you know. There was nobody like checking there. It was not soundproof or something like that, or not well enough, you know. And it felt even more evident because the PlayStation 4 and Xbox version has Shenmue 1 and 2, and you could choose between the Japanese and the American voice acting. And when you put the Japanese version, it felt very clear. The sound was clear. There was no background noise. But if you put the English version, it was night and day in terms of sound quality. Because the voice acting, we kind of could accept what it was for the vocal performances. But the sound quality felt like, normally, even if the voice acting is kind of bad, the sound quality can be checked, looked after. But in that case, it didn't feel like it. And it was weird, considering that it was the most expensive game ever at the time, you know. It felt like, where were the money going?
Yeah. He's very big, very rushed.
Very poorly planned.
Poorly managed, maybe.
Poorly conceived. I mean, it never should have been recorded in Japan.
Yeah.
Should have happened.
Right, I agree. And then, but let's change game a little bit, because one of my favorites that you worked on, as if there was only one, is Shadow Hearts for PS2. And that translation was, again, a little bit controversial. And that really goes to say, really, you can't please everybody. We know that.
Do you mean the first Shadow?
The first one.
The budget difference between the first Shadow Hearts and Shadow Hearts Covenant was quite huge. Not only was the budget different, but the companies that were hiring us to do it were different. Shadow Hearts, it had a bit of a strange, it went to Midway, but it was first started by a company called Aruze.
Okay.
And then Aruze, gave it to someone else, and so I think, was it Activision? I can't even recall, but Covenant, by the time we got to Covenant, we were hiring, real pros and doing it in a place in LA. Shadow Hearts, we kind of slapped it together, low budget, and I have some regrets about that.
You did the best you could with what you were.
Yeah.
You had available.
I did my best.
One of the things is like the protagonist, Yuri. He was basically a pervy throughout the game. The female lead was like 14, and he was like harassing her all the time. And how did it make you feel to translate his lines? So were you like, oh my god, is this guy for real? Or you simply maybe didn't care? Or
I guess I must have forgotten that.
the name was also different. You or maybe somebody from your team changed the name from the Japanese. If it wasn't Yuri, it was something else that I can't recall.
I can.
You did.
I changed to Yuri, and I'm still in contact with Mr. Machida,
Oh, really?
and he loved that change.
I love it. I thought that the original. I don't even remember. It was much more complicated.
It was Urmanov.
It's so hard. Like
It was Uru.
Udo. Okay.
Which didn't make any sense. He was half Japanese, half Russian, and I just thought Uri doesn't sound like a name to the Western audience. So what would sound like a name they know? So
The Yuri is totally Russian, honestly. No, that's a great choice.
when you're translating something, especially from a really foreign language like Japanese, there's often some ambiguity. You're not quite sure. Maybe sometimes you're not quite sure what's going on, or you're not sure how you want to emphasize this or that. And so it's much safer to play it safe. You would keep it bland. Let's put it that way. Especially if you have 4 translators working on the same game.
Right.
Problem is, Lucian, is that if 4 people are translating it, they're all going to have slightly different styles, right?
Of course.
And so, and also add on to that the fact that a translator working as a freelancer for a company may be criticized by taking a risk. This word isn't in there. Why did you add this word?
And then you have to stand for it.
You have to either stand up or change it. And so it's going to take your time. Maybe you won't get another job from them. So a new translator is often what they do is they kind of play it safe. And what you wind up with is a very beige, bland translation that has no flavor.
Yeah. And the translation is always out of loss. We try to lose as little as possible. That's I guess what we go for.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much. I think it's time to wrap it up. But before we do, one last question. It's not really a question, more of a space for you to say anything you wish to our viewers, your fans who followed your work over the years. So, what would you say?
Wow, first of all, I'd say thank you. I can't believe I have fans. I would say that I really loved, translating all these games, and nothing makes me happier than the thought that I inspired people or I made their days a little bit better. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome, and I feel really privileged to have had this career and this opportunity. And that's about it. Thank you, everybody, for all your support. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'd say we can now let Jeremy go. We've kept him here for long enough. And you've been very patient. You've answered so many questions today, and I truly, truly appreciate your honesty about the topics we've been discussing. Thanks so much for your time. You really made my day, and I'm sure that of our viewers as well.
It was my pleasure as well.
And that really wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this nice little talk with our special guest, Jeremy Blaustein. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can bring you the best quality content. But really, at the end of the day, I just want to thank you so much for spending some of your precious time watching this video to the end. I will be seeing you in my next one, but until then, stay safe, play safe, world gamers.